As the glaciers of the last ice age retreated, great herds of grazing animals would push northwards and westwards, eventually coming to what we now know as the British Isles. And wherever the prey goes, the predators are soon to follow. The grey wolf of Scotland would become a constant adversary to the people of the land. It was known to hunt their game, eat their livestock, and on occasion kill. It was due to all of these factors that sadly the Scottish wolf was hunted to extinction. But who was it that drew life from the last wolf in Scotland? The Scottish grey wolf, or Liath Madadh, stands around 1 metre in height and was very similar to the Arctic wolf. They were a native species to Britain and were commonly found in the vast untainted forests of the Scottish Highlands. For hundreds of years, the Highlanders despised the wolves. They were constantly at odds with each other. The death of many Highland clansmen was attributed to the wolves. Large packs would come to farms on cold winter nights and wipe out whole herds of cattle, leaving the farmers to starve in their homes or freeze to death hunting in the bitter winter snows. The shielings, found all around Scotland, were built to give travellers refuge on their route. But in the old days, it was not the wind or the hail that they feared, but the wolves. Not only did the wolves ruin lives and take them, but they were known to desecrate burial grounds. In Sutherland, near the bay of Eddrachillis, the wolves exhumed bodies from the graves with such frequency that the inhabitants resorted to burying their dead on the nearby island of Handa. An old poem from this time was recorded in the Book of Highland Minstrelsy. On Eddrachillis shore, the grey wolf lies in wait. Woe to the broken door, woe to the loosened gate, and the groping wretch whom sleety fogs on the trackless moor belate. The lean and hungry wolf, with his fangs so sharp and white, his starving body pinched by the frost of a northern night, and his pitiless eyes that scare the dark with their green and threatening light. He climbeth the garden gate, he leapeth the hurdle bar, he steals the sheep from the pen, and the fish from the boathouse spars, and he digs the dead from out of the sod, and gnaws them under the stars. Thus every grave we dug, the hungry wolf uptore, and every morn the sod was strewn with bones and gore. Our Mother Earth had denied us rest on Eddrachillis shore. Many other areas of the Highlands also practiced island burial for the same purpose. All this is to say that during that time in Scotland, the wolves were hated. It then stands to reason that the man who killed the last of the Scottish wolves would be remembered as a folk hero and much loved by the locals. And there was no shortage of those that appeared to claim the title. In the land of Moray, it is said that the man who killed the last wolf was a clansman by the name of MacQueen. During the 18th century, word came to Moy Hall, the ancestral seat of Clan Macintosh. It told of a great wolf which had attacked a woman traveller and carried off her 2 children. The Macintosh chief quickly sent for his greatest hunter, a man known as MacQueen. He was said to be the best stalker and tracker in the land. On the day of the hunt, the Macintosh and his retinue of hunters assembled ready to be led by MacQueen, but the man did not show. Hour after hour the chief waited, and his patience was drawn very thin indeed. Just as the chief and the hunters were about to abandon the hunt and head home, MacQueen appeared, slowly strolling over to the men. There was no hint of speed or haste in the man's walk. The chief screamed, "Where in the hell have you been?" MacQueen looked towards the angered man and inquired, "What's the hurry?" The chief's eyes widened in unbelievable anger. His face turned a deep red, and he inhaled as if to start shouting. But before any word could leave his mouth, MacQueen pulled from his plaid the head of a great wolf. He threw it at the feet of the enraged Macintosh and casually remarked, "That's it to you." He turned and strode off in the same casual manner as he arrived, and thus it is said the last wolf of Scotland had been killed. In Perthshire, there is a tale about a miller named Robertson. It is said that on one fine afternoon, the miller's wife was at home, standing by a large pot of porridge, stirring it with a short wooden stave, commonly known as a spurtle. Suddenly a wolf appeared at the doorway, and upon noticing the woman's sleeping child in a small cot, bolted straight towards it. The miller's wife threw herself in front of the wolf, and grappled it like a woman possessed. The wolf twisted and thrashed, lashing out with its razor-like teeth. But the woman held strong, and raised the spurtle above her head, and then brought it down with a tremendous force. The wooden stave landed hard on the wolf's head, killing it outright. The beast slumped to the ground, and the woman returned to her porridge. It is said that no wolf was ever seen in Perthshire again, and still to this day, that place is known as the Mill of the Wolf. A similar tale is told in the land of Argyll, although its female combatant was not so lucky. It was said that on a cold, dark evening, a woman was travelling from Braevalach to Inverary. On her journey, she was forced to cross a wide and open stretch of moorland. It was here that she was confronted by a lone grey wolf, old and ragged, standing upon a nearby hill. Seeing the creature, the woman scanned her surroundings for shelter, and saw a large mill in the distance. Quickly she drew her knife, and began to run with all the speed she could muster. Glancing behind her, she could see the old wolf following. It seemed to be keeping pace, and waiting for the right time to strike down its prey. As the pair neared the mill, it would seem that that time had come, and the wolf leapt upon the woman, and sank its long sharp fangs deep into her throat. But as the teeth tore into the woman's flesh, her blade entered the heart of the beast. The bodies of both the wolf and the woman were found lying near the Braelachan mill, and no wolf has been seen in Argyll since. Another man credited with killing the last wolf was Andrew MacGillivray, known as Great Andrew of the Wolves. He was born around 1600 and is said to have made a living for himself as a wolf slayer. He would travel from village to village, hunting and killing wolves wherever he went. He won great fame for his talent, and he is said to have been one of, if not the last, great wolf slayer of Scotland. It is thought by many that the last wolf was hunted and killed by Andrew the Wolf Slayer. In Scottish history, there is an official tale of the last wolf, which states that Sir Ewan Cameron of Lochiel killed the last wolf in 1680. At that time, Sir Ewan was chief of the Camerons of Lochiel. Not much is known about the battle with the last wolf, but it is said that he is a seasoned hunter and the beast was shot dead. 138 years later, in 1818, there appeared a large taxidermied wolf for sale in the auction catalogue of the London Museum. An inscription on the case read, "The last wolf killed in Scotland by Sir Ewan Cameron." The current whereabouts of this historical piece are unknown, but it is very unlikely that it was the last wolf, and even more unlikely was the wolf killed by Cameron. Despite the so-called official tale, stories of the last wolf continued for many years. A later tale can be found in a book named The Art of Deer Stalking by English hunter William Scrape. He tells the story of a hunter named Paulson and the last wolf in Sutherland. It was said that one day in the early 1700s, the man Paulson and his two sons were out hunting game when they came upon a large heap of stones. The pile of stones was so large, they assumed it to be some form of cairn, but when they examined it closer, they found an opening littered with tracks. Paulson knew from the shapes in the mud that this was the lair of a wolf. One of his sons gently crept into the cave, and climbing through a narrow fissure, entered the wolf's lair. There at the back of the cave sat two young cubs. Taking no chances, the boy drew his blade and began to kill the cubs. But suddenly, to Paulson's horror, the enraged parent appeared, bounding home towards its den, having heard the cry of its cubs. As the wolf dashed into the entrance, Paulson caught the beast's tail and held fast to the creature, who was now blocking the narrow passage. The boy in the cavern called to his father, asking what was obscuring the light. Paulson called back, "If the root of this tail breaks, you will soon know, son." In the end, Paulson slew the wolf. Never again were such beasts seen in Sutherland. Later, in 1924, a large stone was erected to commemorate this story and mark the spot at which the last wolf of Sutherland was killed by the hunter Paulson. In reality, we have no knowledge when the last wolf in Scotland died, let alone who killed it, if it was killed. What we do know is that the wolves were persecuted in Scotland for centuries. The earliest mention of these Scottish wolves comes from the 2nd century BC, where an ancient king known as Dorvadla decreed that if a slayer can bring the head of a wolf, he will be rewarded with an ox, which was quite the kingly gift for the time. Wolves were also shown carved on one of the Pictish stones, dating from the 6th century, but not much is known about this period. Much later, another royal decree would send men out hunting wolves in their hundreds. This time it was made by King James I of Scotland, who passed a law requiring 3 wolf hunts to take place every year between the 25th of April and the 1st of August. This would coincide with the wolf's breeding season and aim to eradicate the beasts from Scotland. Of course, this plan would fail, and the wolves would continue to ravage the land. Despite the many tales, it is generally thought that the Scottish grey wolf died out during the mid-17th century. There is no record of large wolf hunts after 1630, and none at all after 1650. During this time, huge areas of woodland were being burned, specifically to rid the people of the dreaded wolf. It's possible some survived until later, but not many. In 1966, a proposal was made to reintroduce wolves back into Scotland. This idea never came to fruition at the time, and was suggested again in 1999 and 2002. Each time the notion of reintroducing wolves to Scotland was brought up, there was an intense backlash by communities of farmers, ramblers, and conservationists. This ended the official possibility of returning the wolf to Scotland. But in 2007, a man named Paul Lister, owner of the ALLAIDH estate, decided that he would build his own wilderness reserve, inspired by South African game reserves. He has plans to introduce Swedish wolves back into Scotland. This of course has not been backed or sanctioned by any governmental or regulatory body. I'm also fairly sure that the very idea of reintroducing wolves would have many ancient Scots turning in their hidden island graves. Thank you for listening.